Hello everyone, thank you for joining in today. This is Between the Letters, the More Than a Word video/audio content series. This is episode 2. Episode 1 was way back last year. We took a little break from the video stuff to really focus on the audio, but now we are back in full swing with the video. Again, this is episode 2 of Between the Letters. Why is it called Between the Letters? Let's think about this for a second and dissect kind of the thought process behind this particular branding. So you've probably heard the saying between the lines before, right? Read between the lines. We're talking about a large body of writing or work or something of that nature, but for this show it's about words, right? So I'm taking the same kind of logic and thought and applying it to the smaller words, making it between the letters. So what this is going to look like, again, is going to be small video content that will come out in between each episode, kind of to recap the episode that just came out and to look forward to the new ones that will be coming as well. So we just dropped this last weekend episode 33 of the show God. I was joined by guest Greg Ford for this amazing conversation. It ran a little long and we needed even longer, so we'll definitely be revisiting that topic at some point in the near, hopefully, future. But from the conversation that we did have, things were very interesting and certainly differing in a lot of our views. Greg, obviously, he's the leader of One Church in Columbus, Ohio. So he definitely comes from a very Christian belief standpoint, whereas I'm more, I consider myself to be spiritual. And we'll get into my personal kind of beliefs in my spiritual and religious life shortly here. But first, I just wanted to kind of, talk about the episode itself, because there's a lot to unpack. God is the word, and man, God, that is the deepest of deep, right? And it's so open and ambiguous in a lot of ways, but it's also very directional, and it's just a very odd word and circumstance, and that's what makes it perfect for the show. But within the episode, one thing that I loved was the conversation. It was towards the beginning where Greg brought up a story from the Bible with Jesus, showing that he was made up of both grace and truth. Not two halves, but a whole of each, which mathematically you're like, how does that work, right? And I guess that's supposed to be, speaking to the marvel that Jesus is or is supposed to be known as. But with those two things, grace and truth, the story, if you listen to the episode, which if you haven't, I really recommend going back and doing that. If you can spare a half an hour of your time with us, it would mean the world to me, and I'm sure Greg would appreciate it as well, listening to his super valuable content and words for sure. But it talks about, someone who sinned, committed adultery, was the specific crime that this person engaged in. And upon, that mistake or that wrongdoing that person engaged in, the people of a town brought this sinner to Jesus in the town square, almost to test him, to see what he would do. And when they did this, Jesus said, and at this time, by the way, adultery was illegal, which I did not know, and Greg taught me as well. And so they brought her and said, this person did this, and they should be punished. And Jesus said, absolutely, everybody grabbed their stones. And so everyone picked up their stones. That's truth, Greg said. Greg said that the truth was the thing that needed to be done, because that's what the true law and the true nature of humanity said at the time. But then upon grabbing the rocks, Jesus was the first one to throw his rock to the side instead of at the sinner. And that is grace, Greg told me. And Greg said that right there, as Jesus did that, everyone else in the circle also cast their stones aside instead of at the sinner. And so Greg brought that up, and he said, this is what is incredible about Jesus. And it really is incredible, and I'm not going to discount that at all. The story is insane, and it speaks volumes to lots of things we need to know and I think realize today, is that these two things that we feel oftentimes might be at odds really aren't, grace and truth in this moment. He showed a full-fledged of both. It wasn't partial of either. It was just all of both things, and it's a very interesting thing. It goes back to a lot of previous conversations. I had a conversation with Joel Hallbaker, I don't know if you remember, episode 26, about humility, about confidence and humility, and how they're completely able to coexist, and they actually feed better off of each other than one by itself. And this is the same type of situation. And the beauty of this story, why I'm so in love with that story in this episode is it really illustrates a part of what my personal religious involvement is, and that is that I don't subscribe, I've talked about this before, but I don't subscribe to any one religious sect or belief, because I believe that they all have value in the stories and potential truths. And I think that each of the leaders within these books and these texts and these scripts are valuable, and they teach us very cool things. And so I don't want to close myself off to the world that offers by entering into one that I believe in, because I don't feel fully committed to one set of beliefs. I think that they all provide some value and some truths, just as the grace and truth conversation did, right? Like, I believe in the core meaning of what that was saying. But I also believe in some things that I've learned through, fasting for Ramadan in Islam, and learning through conversations. And right now I'm reading a Hindu book. And so through these different exploratory, moments, that's where I find my spiritual love for religion is not by allegiance, but by open-mindedness. And so I think that's what, really draws me to an episode like this, or to do, the religious activities that I have engaged in the past without being involved in the full-fledged way that most are when they engage in religious acts. If I had to quantify what my religion and spirituality is, I would say that I'm a believer in question. I'm subscribed to the belief of question. What I mean by that is, I oftentimes think that religion tries to answer all of our questions, and it does a great job in some ways. But I also think that it's important to sometimes step back and realize and acknowledge the uncertainty and immensity of a moment. And for me, I enjoy the fact that there's some things that I just don't know. And I enjoy the fact that some questions, the answer to them is in fact another question. And in ways, religion really provokes this as well, and that's why I think it's valuable. These stories bring up more questions, and that's the capacity that at least I take them in, is I don't necessarily take them as fact, but I take them as, a piece of provocation to help me progress my thought process and my personal spirituality, and ultimately what just makes me happy, because at the end of the day, that's what religion should be for people. It should be a way to access the maximized route to happiness, and that's where I think its value truly lies. It gives people something to believe in, and belief is very important regardless of truth. And so that's a very interesting conversation, right? Like, God is a huge word, and it's perhaps the biggest word in the world, because not only is there the fact of, is there a God or not, but what God is real, because each God has different things, and some people have more than one God. And so you get to this point where it's like, they can't all be true. And this is another thought I have about religion, where it's like, how can all of this be true? I feel like it can't, because there's so many different things, but yet millions of people believe in each one. So that's why I think that question, which religion, spirituality, all these individual religions, it's the essence of question that unites everything, in my opinion. And that's why I believe in it, because I think the power of uncertainty and the power of comfort with the vulnerable self and the uncertain world and this giant question mark that is life is very cool. And yes, sure, it's scary, but I think that that's ambiguous on purpose in some aspects. And I think that if we lean into that, our wonder takes over, and our love for life takes over, and just acknowledgement of the beauty and the creation and however it got here. It's just magical. So instead of starting wars over it, we unite around that fact of humanity and that beauty. And that's not at odds with religion at all. That's just the way that we utilize this tool that we have to unite people through story and potential truth and love and grace and in truth, as that story talked about as well. Just fascinating to me. But anyway, I won't ramble on for too much longer, giving you all a religious manifesto here. But, I really appreciate your time in this video, because these are going to continue to get better. Obviously, I'm in my dorm room studio here. If you haven't seen, you might be able to see the mics here. This is kind of the new setup here. Got some different stuff going on, but I really appreciate you all being along for the now 33 episodes. It's been almost a year and a half that we're coming up on here of More Than a Word in existence in some capacity. So that's pretty cool, I think, and it's only possible because you all give me your time and energy, and God, I cannot thank you enough, and it truly means the world to me that you all do that. So episode 33 we just finished. Now I give a quick little preview here. Episode 34 is coming next week. I'm going to be joined by Sydney Grover from Las Vegas, Nevada, and she actually is the leader in this. She started this nonprofit in her dorm room, her freshman year of college, and the nonprofit is called Can You Spare a Story? And it's fascinating. It's centered around homelessness, right? And changing the narrative of homelessness, which is something that before I met Sydney, before I talked to her, thought about any of her work, I was fascinated by, because I think that our narrative around homeless population in this country and beyond is very inaccurate in a lot of ways. We think that they all did something bad or made, some terrible decision, and sometimes they just had a rough run of luck. And so she's really trying to change the narrative that these people are all drug addicts and all bad people looking to, steal from you or just asking for handouts and laziness. She's trying to wipe that all away and show these are people, same as you and I at the end of the day. And she's doing this in the best, most real, raw, organic way possible, which is why I love Sydney and I love what she's doing. She just talks to them and tells their story and treats them like a normal human. And from having a few conversations with her, she told me that the reaction she gets from nearly every person she talks to is, wow, no one has just come and sat down and talked to me in maybe 5-10 years. Can you imagine that? I cannot imagine that. 5-10 years of that. And so Sydney, for devoting her life to that, man, it's just very impressive and very admirable, and I'm behind her 100% because I think the point of it is magical. And so she spends tons of time out in the street talking to these people, writing up stories. She's starting some other forms of content to tell these people's story, and some of them have really incredible stories. So check out her website as well. Her name's Sydney Grover again, but check her out and Can You Spare a Story? Magical stuff, really important. It's going to just change the game of the narrative of homelessness and people in our nation that are struggling with this thing that is a very real reality for many folks. So that's just a little preview of episode 34 coming next week. I head to Las Vegas tomorrow for the weekend. Very excited about that. And then next week I'm going to be back here for a few days and then back to Columbus, Ohio, my hometown. So I'm really excited about all that. But anyway, I just really appreciate your time again. Podcasts, videos, writing, anything that you give or can give, gosh, I really appreciate that from you. And so just wanted to say that and make sure that you guys have a great rest of your week and great weekend. I'll see you all later.